Hello everybody, and welcome to 10-Minute Nodes, a guide to the visual scripting tool for space engineers. Today, we'll take a look at the in-game F11 menu and quickly set up a world for our upcoming visual script. Alright, so let's start out by setting up a new world that we can use later with our visual script. So go to New Game, Custom Game, and let's use the Lone Survivor as our base world. Rename it VST Example Scenario. Make sure you're in offline and that your environment hostility is set to safe and disable block limits. Then go into Advanced, scroll down, remove cargo ships and drones, and make sure spiders and wolves are also turned off. Also, double check to make sure spectator is allowed. Everything else right now can be left the same. Go to World Generator, and you can set this to whatever you want. For now, we'll just leave it as is. So let's click OK, and let's start up the world. Alright, we are now loaded into the world. That is all you had to do to set up a world for basic use with a visual scripting tool. In a later video, I will show you how to attach your visual script to the world. However, we have not made the visual script yet, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's go over the F11 menu. So, on your keyboard, press F11 twice. As you can see here, you'll get a screen similar to this. Now, the basics of this. Over here on the right, you can see a lot of information. I'll go over that in a moment. But as you can see here, we have our mouse, but there's no way for us to move the camera. Simply press and hold your right click on your mouse, and then you should be able to move around. This behaves very much like Spectator Cam, and it pretty much is Spectator Cam with additional features. So let's move over here really quick and talk about adding in entities and triggers, which will be the main points of your script. So up here, you can see that we have spawn entity and delete entity, which are self-explanatory, so let's spawn one really quickly. As you notice, we have a circle here, which is, as you can see up here on the right, named waypoint 0. Now if you want to rename that, it's really simple. You just click rename, and it will come up with this. So we can call that waypoint. Let's call this waypoint spawn, because we're spawning here. And you'll notice up here it changes. Now also, you'll notice that it has these three different colored squares on it. These are direction planes, and if you grab on the square, you notice you can move anywhere in here, or if you grab on the box on the end, it will move on that specific direction. Now, if you press T, you'll notice that it shifts slightly. And that's because it's shifting between global grid and local grid. Also, if you press R, you'll notice that you can now rotate it. This is important in cases where you would use these for cameras or where direction is important, like if someone's spawning in. However, for our use right now, it's not very important. Alright, so now that that's selected, let's talk about adding in triggers. So over here you have a trigger section, and you have attached to selected entity. Click that, and you'll be meted with this screen. So let's just call this trigger underscore. Whoops. Well, it is now known as trigger underscore. Let's delete that and try again. So let's do trigger underscore spawn and confirm. And you'll notice here, after we did that, that our waypoint is no longer selected, and we now have giant planes in the background. What simply happened is that the game decided to select the station that we're on. If you notice, I can select the waypoint, or I can select the station. Let's select the waypoint. Now keep in mind, selecting waypoints isn't always easy. If you have a lot of walls around you from your station, it may be hard to select it. In that case, the best thing you can do is get as close as possible and try to get some open area above you and try your best to click on the lines. In this case, we're lucky. So we want our trigger here to be on our waypoint. So how do you do that? Well, over here there's a button called snap. So if you click that, you'll see that it snaps it to that waypoint. Now if we select the waypoint and press R so we can move it, and if you notice over here on the left, it'll tell you what mode you're in. So let's move it down a bit so it's a little bit more on the ground. And you'll notice that since I moved the waypoint, the trigger also moves. And also up here we have size and select. So select just selects the trigger. So size and the plus and minus on each side dictate how big the trigger size is. Or you can do a very exact one here, like let's say 1.5, and this is in meters. And that's pretty much the basics of setting waypoints and setting triggers. Now, again here you can see that it has selected the station. Now, what you can do is you can build all of your objects for a mission in one spot, and then using the F11 menu, you can actually forcibly move grids wherever you need them to. It's kind of useful, but it also gets a little bit annoying when you accidentally select it and start moving it without realizing. Also, if you notice over here we have selected trigger and then an empty box. If we proceed inside with the camera, you'll see it'll tell you what trigger name it is and the waypoint it's on, or the entity that it's on. This can be very useful when attempting to debug or just seeing which trigger is which. But that's the basics of the F11 menu. As you can see, also it has running level scripts and running state machines. This is an easy, quick way to see if your level script actually loaded onto your world or if your state machine actually started. But that is it mainly for the F11 menu. If you do notice up here we have a cutscenes tool, but we'll cover that in a later video. For now, just leave your trigger and your waypoint here. Press escape once to exit the F11 menu. And if you notice, we can no longer see the trigger. Press escape, and then exit to main menu with saving. And that's the basics of setting up a world and using the F11 menu. Alright, so let's really quickly set up the scenario files in the main game directory. So really quickly, just open up Windows Explorer. Then navigate to your content path in Space Engineers. And then go to the Custom Worlds folder. Now in here you see I have a few different things, and if you notice the names, you'll see that this is where Space Engineers keeps all of the files for the scenarios you see. So down here I've made one called VST Example Scenario. I would recommend you do the same and name it the same. And in here I have some files. Now these files are actually out of date. I need to delete these and edit in the correct ones. So really quickly, do Control-N and open up a new window. And up in the top bar here, type in %appdata%. Scroll down and find Space Engineers. Inside of Space Engineers, find your saves. Click on whatever number that folder is called. And in here you see we have all of our saves, including the VST example scenario. Double click on that. Select everything in here except for the backup. Do Control-C or right-click copy. Go over into the Custom Worlds VST example scenario folder we just made and select Paste. Now what this has done has made it where instead of having to access our scenario from a save file, we now can access it as a scenario and start it up as a fresh world. You can now close both of these. Now, keep in mind that as you save the world, as you work on it, you will have to copy over those 3 main files again into the scenarios folder. That way that it updates the scenario so that the scenario has everything you've worked on. And that concludes this tutorial video. Next time we'll take a look at starting our visual script as well as attaching our visual script to the world and scenario we've just made. That is all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.